Welcome back. The Ministry of Mines and Energy, in collaboration with its stakeholders, has launched the National Industrial Baseline Survey, the IBS, for the upstream oil and gas sector. The survey aims to identify local content opportunities while assessing Namibia's current supply chains and workforce readiness to meet the rigorous standards of the oil and gas industry. Joining us to provide insight is Melanie Harrison, country leader at Deloitte, Namibia. Melanie, good evening. Thank you so much for joining us here on the Daily Roundup.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Let's get straight into it. Talk to us about how the findings from the IBS, will help Namibia meet international oil and gas industry standards. And what specific gaps do you expect to identify in local supply chains and the workforce?
So the purpose of the study or the survey was really to understand the baseline of the country, to understand what are our current capacity in terms of quality and quantity of supply chains as well as workforce. So it's really a baseline. And then what we did was we overlaid that with what the potential demand is. Obviously, we don't know what the demand is yet because we haven't reached FID yet. FID is final investment decision, which needs to happen for an oil major to move into production. So it was really to understand what is the current supply within the country, to overlay that with what the demand potentially is, and to see what those gaps are. And once we understand what those gaps are, which we have done now, we understand which supply chains are ready to service the industry and which supply chains will need to be invested in order to service the industry. But at the same time, also to create that awareness and understanding of supply chains in terms of what the requirements are in the industry. There's quite significant health and safety requirements, but obviously also from an ethics and transparency perspective. At the same time, we do want to benefit as a country the most out of this industry. We do have a high unemployment rate, so we would like to benefit from a workforce perspective. Again, we needed to understand what the current supply is, what skills Namibians have, how many Namibians have an engineering qualification or any other qualification that is required in the industry, and to overlay that with what the demand potentially is. However, one must remember, again, I'm going to go back to the health and safety requirements and the standards of the industry. It's very important that even from a workforce perspective, there is a lot that needs to be done in order to have our workforce at the right level from a quality perspective. And it takes years of experience in order to work in this industry. And I mean, at the end of the day, because health and safety is so key, it's so important that the people are certified, that they've got the right qualifications, because it's such a high risk industry. If you've got one person that doesn't have the right skill, it puts everyone at risk.
What are the anticipated benefits then of the IBS in terms of, creating sustainable local content opportunities for Namibian businesses and workers, particularly in fostering long-term economic growth?
So I think the first benefit out of this IBS was to create awareness. I've realized a lot of supply chains, if I start off with supply chains, they don't actually understand how the industry works. So theoretically, we're looking at 4 phases of this industry over a 20 to 30 year time frame for a typical upstream project. And we're currently in exploration and appraisal. If we reach FID, we'll go into construction. After that, we have first oil, then we would go into production and decommissioning at the end. So the first objective of this whole thing is to create that awareness. And also what supply chains are required in this industry. When we did the survey and when we asked suppliers to please answer the survey, we had a lot of suppliers saying, but why do you need aggregates? Or why do you need cement? Or why do you need, all those different questions? So understanding where they fit in over this whole 25-year span, but at the same time, some supply chains are only required for 1 phase or 2 phases. So, you need to invest for that support over that time frame that you're going to support the industry. Yeah. So it was really just to create that awareness, like I said, which was very key, and we still need to carry on doing that. I think the awareness isn't where it is yet. It's not so easy just to employ a Namibian into the industry. They need to have minimum qualifications, they need to have the certification, they need to have the minimum experience in order to work in this industry. So creating that awareness, and at the same time, the understanding that this isn't a big job creator. If we look at the direct industry, the direct jobs that it will create, we're not talking about 20,000, 30,000 or anything like that. We're talking about a lot less than that. So to get that understanding, but there is an indirect and an induced factor that comes into play as well. So yeah, that was the awareness. And then, like I said, the gaps. So we've identified 9 supply chains they've got the right standards, they've got the right quantity. So they can actually service the industry already. But we've identified other supply chains that need further development in order to support the industry. And we've also identified certain qualifications within Namibia, which our universities don't offer. It might also be that it doesn't make sense to offer the qualification if you only need 5 petroleum engineers or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
But we've identified where those gaps are in terms of qualifications and those gaps in terms of supply chains that would need further development.
Just lastly, Melanie, how does the collaboration between, Total Energy, Shell, Ministry of Mines and Energy, NAMCO and Petrofund shape, the future of Namibia's oil and gas sector, particularly in terms of skills development and workforce integration?
So this is just the starting point. The collaboration needs to be a lot further than that. I think Total and Shell just took the onus upon themselves to be more proactive, to make sure that we get this baseline, to know where we're standing. And you must also remember, IBS is generally not done so early. It's only done generally after FID. So we've done it early. And the reason it's being done early is so that we've got a bit more time, because like I've already mentioned a couple of times, we need time to get the workforce up to the right standard. We need time to get supply chains up to the right standard, and have the right supply chains. So by doing the IBS early, we've created that time. We've got the collaboration now between Shell and Total. But in terms of the oil majors, there needs to be further collaboration with NAMPOA and the other oil majors, as well as the major contractors. And we need collaboration with the educational institutions, like I mentioned, NAST, UNAM, NTA, and Petrofund has been quite key also in that. We need collaboration amongst the ministries, because it's not all going to sit with the Ministry of Mines and Energies. There's different ministries ministries that'll have different roles to play. And we need to have collaboration amongst everyone, as well as the financiers. If we look at the banks, if we're looking at SMEs that want to join the industry, they might need financing. We need to look at different ways of allowing for financing for this industry. So this is just the starting point. We've only just created sort of like the dipstick. This is where we are now. Everyone needs to work together to move this forward. And I think it's been a great initiative to understand where we are. But it's really about everyone pulling their weight and pulling together to make this industry a success for the country, and to make sure that we optimize as much as possible in terms of local content.
You mentioned, of course, right in the beginning that this IBS was for information gathering purposes and, of course, disseminating that information. So in terms of public, being able to have a view at this, where are they able to do that? Where can they get a hold of this survey?
So the report was launched today, and the report is available on the Deloitte website and on our social media pages. There's a link to go to a Deloitte webpage where the report can be downloaded from. There's the full report, which is a 500+ page report, and there's a summary report. Both of them are accessible on our Deloitte website. Like I mentioned, social media on LinkedIn, Instagram, as well as Facebook and Twitter. And then we have also shared it with the participants that were at the launch today. And we will share it far and wide as we can.
Melanie Harrison, thank you so much for your time this evening. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much. Keep well.
When we come back after this brief break, we continue with more conversation here on the Daily Round.